The topic that I'm going to talk about today, is counterfactual analysis for explainable AI. And most of what I'm going to present today is the work done by me and my team in the area of explainable AI that we have built as a full-fledged module on Hypersense AI Studio, right? And it is a complete self-serve, no-code, distributed computing-enabled platform for enterprise AI. And it's very interesting that yesterday I was in a talk about Dask, and the preceding talk was on Airflow, and we have leveraged Dask for distributed computing and Airflow for pipeline orchestration in AI Studio. Now, before I start, right, let me give you a brief introduction about me, my team and my organization, right? So I am Shashank, and I head the AI Labs team at Subex, right? Before Subex, I have worked with multiple tech companies, including Amazon, Flipkart, VMware, Target, right? And here, I have been working for the last 2.5 years, right? Now, Subex is a pioneer in the space of digital trust, providing solutions for 75% of world's top 50 telcos, right? And the charter for me and my team is to build AI-first products for telecom and other verticals, and also embed artificial intelligence, in all the existing products of Subex. Now, one of the AI-first product, as I said earlier, that we have built at Subex is Hypersense AI Studio, and the current study that I am presenting has been done to build a full-fledged explainable AI module, in Hypersense AI Studio. Before I get into the subsequent slides, I think it is important to mention that most of this work has been led by Asif Salim, who is research head at Subex AI Labs and is currently part of the audience, listening to this talk. Now, explainable AI, as you all know, is one of the most researched domain in AI, and in the past few years, a lot of work has been done, in this area, right? Last year I was at PyData Global, and I delivered a talk on one of the explainable AI Python libraries that we have built at Subex. It's called as dominance analysis. And when it comes to counterfactual explanation, counterfactual explanation is one specific class of explanation that provides a link, to what could have happened, had the input to a model being changed in a particular way, right? So, in general, it is the process of imagining, right, a hypothetical reality. That is how X shall be for Y not to occur, or vice versa, right? Now let's say, you have built a classification model to predict loan eligibility, and for a particular entity, the original prediction is loan rejected, right? Now for the desired prediction, loan approved, right? You want to change the prediction from loan rejected to loan approved. You will get few counterfactuals within the ML decision, model's decision boundary, and they could be, increase the feature income, by $10,000, right? And then the loan will get approved, right? Or increase the feature income by $5,000 and have one more year of credit history, right? And then the loan will get approved, right? So essentially, thinking in counterfactuals requires imagining a hypothetical reality that contradicts the observed facts, right? So essentially what you are doing a what if, right? But you are doing a reverse what if. So you are saying, hey, what should I do to basically change the prediction from 1 to 0 or 0 to 1, right? In a typical binary classification model, right? And that's what counterfactual explanation is all about. Now, one key factor, or one, when it comes to counterfactual explanation, it is important that the counterfactuals are feasible and actionable in nature, right? Because if they are not actionable in nature, you cannot act on that. You cannot, change the outcome, right? So let me take an example, right? And let me take a real world example. let's say, I want to put my house on rent. So I have a house and I want to put it on rent. But I'm not sure that how much rent I can get, right? So what I do is that, I build an ML model to predict the rent, right? Now, I have a bunch of features around, locality, number of floors, size of the house, let's say, number of bathrooms that I have, right? And the amenities and the furnishings that are there, right? So I have a bunch of these predictors, a bunch of features. And what I do is I build a regression-based model to predict, what is the rent that I can get, right? And the model predicts that I can get a rent of $1,400 per month, right, for the given attributes. Now, my minimum expectation, right, is $2,000. So I'm expecting a rent of $2,000. And so what I do is play with the attributes to evaluate that how can I increase the rent, right? Now, what I do is I generate a bunch of counterfactuals. And one of the counterfactuals, indicate, right, that if my house was 200 square feet larger, I could have rented it out for $2,000. Now, this is interesting information, right? This is interesting knowledge, but non-actionable, right, in nature, because I cannot enlarge my house, right? So what I essentially need are those counterfactuals which are feasible and actionable, right? So in this renting out example, it can be that, if I furnish my house with a refrigerator, an air conditioner, and set of new carpets, I'd be likely to get $2,000 USD as rent, right? So these are actionable counterfactuals, right? Because if I furnish, furnishing is something which I can do on the fly, right? So these counterfactuals are explained in nature. So for a model to predict loan eligibility, right? Increasing income, increasing credit score, right? Reducing, overdues, right? These are actionable counterfactuals, right? But changing gender, right, race, or reducing someone's educational qualification are not feasible. So net, these ones, right? These 7 properties are desirable properties of actionable counterfactuals, right? The first one is that the counterfactual explanation should be interpretable and human friendly, right? They should focus on a small number of feature changes, right? So let's say you are operating with a model having 100 features, and your counterfactual recommends changing 60 out of those 100 features, right? Now, this definitely is not feasible, right? You cannot change 60 features in real world to get a desired outcome, right? The next desirable property is that the counterfactuals that are generated should not contradict each other. So you have 2 different counterfactuals and they contradict each other, then they are not actionable in nature, right? So they should not contradict each other. Also, the counterfactuals should be generated in such a way, in such a fashion that you should be able to generate the predefined prediction as closely as possible. So you have defined, in the earlier rent prediction problem, right? You should have counterfactuals that your predicted rent is close to the desired $2,000, right? That's another, desirable property of actionable counterfactuals. The next one, so the counterfactual should have features similar to the instance of feature values in the original data set, right? So in your original data set, the feature values range from, let's say, -1 to 5, but your counterfactual gives you a value which is 7. That's not something which is actionable in nature, right? So your feature values that are generated should be as similar as possible to the instance, regarding feature values, right? And the next one of the other key desirable property of counterfactual explanation is the need to generate diverse set of counterfactual explanations, right? So that user has the flexibility to choose the counterfactuals which are most feasible and actionable in nature, right? If you only get one counterfactual or similar counterfactuals and you don't get diverse set of counterfactuals, you might not be able to act. So getting diverse set of counterfactuals is another very important property of actionable counterfactuals. And the last but not the least property is that the counterfactuals should have feature values which are likely and not something which are not feasible, right? So that's another important a desirable property of extendable counterfactual. Now, basis the desirable properties of counterfactual explanations. A counterfactual explanation is necessarily a multi-objective, optimization problem, right? With these 4 objectives, right? And the intent is to simultaneously minimize, the 4 objective, that are here, right? So the intent is to simultaneously minimize, 4 objective loss functions, and each of these objectives correspond to one of the 4 criteria that we talked about in the last slide, right? Now, the first objective here, which is O1, reflects that the prediction of our counterfactuals should be as close as possible to our desired prediction, right? So if you see here, right, it should be as close as to the desired prediction. And we therefore want to minimize the distance between the new prediction and the desired prediction, right? So that's what the first objective function is here. The second objective, O2, right, reflects that our counterfactuals should be as similar as possible to our instance X, right? So it quantifies the distance between suggested feature and the original feature for both categorical and numerical feature. And then the objective is to minimize the distance, right? The next objective, which is O3 here, right, is around the number of features. And by minimizing O3, we aim for our third criteria, that is sparse feature changes, right? So that's the third criteria for counterfactuals. And the fourth objective, O4, reflects that our counterfactuals, right, should have likely feature values combination. So the intent, here with the 4 objective functions is not to collapse the 4 objectives O1, O2, O3, O4 by summing or weighing them up, but to optimize all 4 of them, simultaneously. So, if you have these 4 objective functions and you optimize them simultaneously, you are essentially, doing, counterfactual explanation. Now, there are quite a few algorithms which have come up in recent past. It's an evolving domain, in research. And but let's talk about the key algorithms which are there for counterfactuals, right? A simple and naive approach to generate counterfactuals, as you would have guessed by now, is trial and error, right? That is equivalent to a random search, or keep changing the value of features of interest randomly till you get the desired prediction. But as discussed in the earlier slide, the approach of defining a loss function and then optimizing it, leveraging an optimization algorithm, is a much better approach. And there are, these 4 algorithms which are there in public domain for counterfactual explanation. Now, the first one is by Wachter, which basically optimizes, objective 1 and 2 discussed in the last slide. The second one is also very popular, right? And it's the one which just came last year, which is, multi-objective, counterfactual explanation by Dandel, which optimizes all 4 criteria. I'm going to talk in some detail about the other 2 algorithms, right? So the diverse counterfactual explanation, proposed by Microsoft, popularly known as DICE, is pretty useful. It generates, multiple diverse counterfactuals, and hence more often than not, you will end up having some counterfactuals which are feasible and actionable, right? So in case of DICE, it optimizes criterion 1 and 2 in addition to an extra, criterion which is around diversity, right? So the diversity criterion, is to generate diverse counterfactuals, right? We'll look into DICE in some detail in subsequent slides, right? The other algorithm which is still evolving is interpretable counterfactuals guided by class prototypes, and this also generates multiple interpretable counterfactuals that lie closer to data distribution and are feasible and actionable in nature. Now this particular method optimizes objective 1, 2, and 3 in addition to 2 more criterion to ensure the counterfactuals follow the same distribution as the data explicitly, right? It's very important, feature of this method. Now, the advantage of this method is that it speeds up, the generation of counterfactuals by using prototypes of each class. And this method can also be applied to image data and tabular data. Now let's look at DICE. So as I was saying, DICE looks at optimizing the first two objectives of multi-objective, optimization challenge that we talked about. And those two objectives are, prediction of counterfactuals should be as close as possible to desired prediction, and counterfactuals should be as similar as possible to the instance, right? Now, the major criterion amongst, the desirable properties of actionable counterfactuals that DICE looks at, right, is meeting, the DICE looks at, right, is generation of multiple diverse counterfactuals, right? And so here you are seeing three functions, right? The first loss function here, right, basically optimizes the difference between the generated counterfactual and the desired outcome, right? The second function basically looks at optimizing distance between the value of feature generated as part of counterfactuals and the original value of feature for both categorical and numeric features. And the third and most important function here, is the determinantal, point process, which, essentially is a stochastic point process, which gives you the probability distribution, of which is characterized as a determinant of some function, right? So this is to ensure that we have diverse set of counterfactuals so that we get a few which are actionables, as I was, talking earlier. Now, DICE is pretty intuitive to use, right? And there is as I said, right, there is a Python library, DICE ML from Microsoft, which makes it super easy to generate diverse counterfactuals. Now, what we have done is that we have used the same library, and on top of that, we have optimized it further and implemented it on Dask, right? Now, let me show you an example of counterfactuals for churn prediction, a model. Now, the data set here is of customer churn prediction, and the counterfactuals generated are to check under what circumstances the customer would not have churned, right? So if you see here, the query instance prediction by the model is class 1, and class 1 corresponds to churn here, right? Now, there are three counterfactuals that are generated corresponding to class 0. So I want to change the original prediction of 1 to 0. So churn to not churn, right? Non-churn. Now, what we have done is that we have selected 9 features to generate the counterfactuals. But if you see the counterfactuals, there are 3 counterfactuals which have been generated here, right? And out of the 9 features that have been selected to generate the counterfactuals, only 2 are changed, right? By using diverse counterfactuals. So only 2 have changed. And for the first counterfactual here, satisfaction score, has changed from, the original 2 to 4, right? And total charges are also changed from 151.05 to 246.3, right? So only two of the attributes have changed. For the second counterfactual, satisfaction score had changed, and the long distance charges, right? Have also changed, right? So these 2 values have changed. And for the third counterfactual, satisfaction score had changed, and the other feature which has changed is total revenue. So you see here, the model has generated, 3 diverse counterfactuals in each of the cases. Out of the 9 that we have selected, right? 9 attributes that we have selected, only 2 attributes have changed. So they are pretty much actionable in nature, and that's one of the key property of generating actionable counterfactuals. Now we repeated the same exercise for regression, right? And we took Boston house pricing dataset and generated counterfactual for regression models. So in this case, the original prediction is 24.5508. The counterfactual generated to change the house price prediction in the range of 34 to 47, right? So here also we get 3 counterfactuals, and we can see that here, for all the cases, the feature RAD, right? RAD is nothing but, index of accessibility to radial highways, right? And the feature RM, right, which is I think rooms per dwelling, right? So number of rooms per dwelling. Those are the only features which have changed, and the other remains same. So in the first counterfactual, the RM is changed from original 6.211 to 7.691. In the second counterfactual, RAD had changed from the original 4 to 1, and RM had changed from 6.211 to 8.259. In the third counterfactual, only RM had changed from 6.211 to 8.297, right? I could also show you, this in Jupyter Notebook, but I will do that towards the end if we are left with some time. Right? Now, we have talked about DICE, and we have seen that, how easy it is to interpret, how it generates, diverse counterfactuals. Now, the counterfactuals guided by prototypes have, this particular approach has, been originally proposed by Louvain and Claeys, and is a fast model agnostic method for finding interpretable counterfactual explanation, right, of classifier prediction by using class prototype. So the class prototypes, which are obtained using either an encoder or through class-specific KD trees, significantly speeds up the search for counterfactual instances, and this is pretty fast, right? In fact, we have looked at it also, and I'll show the result in a bit. So not only speed, but we have also seen that the results are more interpretable explanations, right? So as I said earlier, right, this particular method looks at meeting the top 3 criterion. So sparse feature change, in addition to near desired predicted outcome, and minimal difference in feature values. So it looks at optimizing the 3 objective functions there. Now, the advantage of this method is that it also eliminates the computational bottleneck that arises because of numerical gradient evaluation for black box models, right? So essentially, counterfactuals guided by class prototypes are also very effective with image and tabular data, right? So I'll not go into details of math because I recognize that the time, we're losing time here. So, but I'll show you the result here, right? So very quickly. So here is an example of counterfactuals, guided by class prototypes, where you can see the counterfactual image generated resembles the digit 9, where the original image was 7, right? So pretty close to the original instance. Now, what we have done is that we have used Alibi library for this. And I'll show you, towards the end, that how we have done it, both on AI Studio as well as on Hypersense, AI Studio. But I will only do it towards the end if we have some time. Now, I know we are getting close to the end time, but before I conclude, I want to talk about some of the research directions in the area of counterfactual explanations. Now, one pertinent research that is still ongoing is around unifying, counterfactual explanations the feature attribution methods, right? The popular feature attribution methods like SHAP and LINE into one causality framework. And the proposed, method evaluates generating feature attribution explanation from a set of counterfactuals, and hence there is no need to run the feature attribution, algorithms explicitly. Now, we at Subex AI Labs are also working, in this direction. And what we're exploring is, leveraging classical hyperparameter optimization methods, right? The Bayesian approach, like Optuna and HyperOpt, and particle swarm methods like Optinity to generate, feasible and explainable counterfactuals, and then leveraging those counterfactuals, generating feature, attribution importance, right? Feature importance. Similar to something what dominance analysis does or SAP does, right? From set of generated counterfactuals. Now there's a lot of ongoing research on counterfactual fairness as well, and a definition of counterfactual fairness, would be that it captures the intuition that a decision is fair towards an individual if it is same in the actual world and counterfactual world, right, where the individual belong to a different demographic group. So you change the demographic group in counterfactual world, but the decision is fair in both the worlds, in the actual world as well as in counterfactual world. Pretty tough thing to do, but there's a lot of research going on counterfactual fairness as well as part of ethical AI. Now, so this brings me to the end of the talk. We'll look at the Jupyter Notebook, because I think I have a couple of minutes. But before I go to the Jupyter Notebook, I do want to call out these very good references on the topic, which helped us immensely on our work. Right, we are also building a full-fledged open source Python library for counterfactual explanation. A lot different from what today exists in the open source world. It should be out in another 3 months, so stay tuned on that. But before I just conclude, also quickly show you how we have leveraged Alibi for. I mean, this is the Jupyter Notebook, right? So I don't want to show another tool, but if you see, this is Alibi library, and what we have done is that we have generated counterfactual for image classification. So this is the original image. And this is the image generated by Alibi, the counterfactual image. So it's pretty close. It adheres to the properties that I talked about, right? The generated counterfactual is pretty close to the original instance. It's also something which is close to the desired output. So it works pretty well. And this is class prototype method. If you look at DICE, using DICE as is and not optimizing on top of that, we have done this, and it's pretty easy to use. So you just have to, get your data, and then you need to build the model, and then you basically find the counterfactuals, right? And here are the counterfactuals. So it's pretty easy to do for both classification and regression. So this brings me to the end of the talk. We're very happy to, if you have time, very happy to take some questions. And yeah, so this is my mail ID, if you can see.
Yeah,
okay.
Great. Thank you for this talk. Thank you for being with us here.